Hey guys, today we have Tim Somerville here joining us from Chicago, recruiting manager at Bluecrew. Tim is a seasoned hands-on recruiter with management experience with background in agency, corporate, and startup companies, giving him a well-rounded experience to find the right candidate and the right role. Tim is a BC graduate of 2009 with a degree in finance. And I'm really excited to welcome Tim onto the show today. Tim, how are you doing?
Good. Thanks, Drew. Glad to be here.
So, we're going to jump right into this. So, Tim, can you tell me a little bit more about yourself? Read your description, but could you kind of give us your career journey, how you've gotten to where you are, finance major, now you're working in tech. Could you kind of walk through that background a little bit?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. So I studied finance at Boston College, obviously, and graduated during the last recession. Right in the thick of it, and really struggled to get my foot in the door in finance. I was. I think kind of looking back, there's some things that I would have definitely changed about my approach. Which is, what I'm eager kind of to share with the listeners here. But there was a lot out of my control too with the economy and like kind of the available jobs. So it forced me to adapt, and that was not a fast process for me. It took me some time, but while I was in Boston, I did a lot of this was not a term at the time, believe it or not, but like kind of gig economy work. Particularly a lot of catering events. We go, worked political fundraisers, big, nice, fancy parties, did a lot of Four Seasons Hotel in Boston to have a little bit of dispensable income, while I was there in school. So remember that it comes full circle later. So I had that experience, but, I was looking for, full-time work. It was definitely, feeling a little underemployed. Just stumbled into an internship at a country music record label in Nashville, Tennessee. Just happened to be Nashville's like the next big city from where I'm from originally in Kentucky. So it was kind of an easy transition for me. Got some exposure to the music industry, which is really interesting. Did that, turned into a part-time job. But I was still kind of working these gig economy, like, serving jobs and doing a lot of stuff. And was just really just looking for more like full-time, long-term, sustainable employment. Wanted like a normal working schedule to be in an office. And I was, I've been really humbled at that point. It's at this point, it was like 2010, after graduating in 2009, so it was definitely an employer's market. So quite honestly, stumbled into the staffing industry, just applied to a job, got an interview, and then quickly hit my stride, and realized that this was my connection to finance and into technology. I wasn't the person, building, technology platforms or, closing big, finance deals or anything like that. But I was the person that found those people that did those things. And I really liked it. So I was at this tech staffing company for like 5 years, where I really kind of cut my teeth in kind of all the fundamentals, worked with a wide range of different companies and roles. And then kind of got to a point where I was ready to make that jump to a tech company. So got an opportunity to be at Salesforce and work with engineering teams in San Francisco and Seattle. All the while I was in Chicago, but kind of with this virtual economy that we've built here, virtual workforce, I was able to kind of, make a big impact and work with, honestly, like world-class engineering talent, some of the top, contributors to open source frameworks in big data, areas like that. Is building build good relationships with senior leaders. And that's where I built more of a full cycle, as you call it in this industry, skill set. Really build confidence in my, business side of things, presenting, influencing, senior leaders, with reporting and data. And so from there, I was like, okay, I'm one person in a large team of many, and I see the impact that I can make. I've learned a lot of things I like, maybe some things I do differently. It's my time to go somewhere and be that one person, where it has full visibility, can make a great impact, and really impact the course of a company. And so I found this opportunity at Bluecrew. And so this is where it kind of comes full circle from the beginning, back when I was at Boston College, doing that gig economy work. Bluecrew, we're like a mobile staffing platform. So it's a place to find jobs. We onboard workers, with an interview up front, very quickly. We still vet and interview them, of course, but once you're on our platform, we send you jobs. And the types of jobs are, what we call like low complexity work. So a lot of that hospitality and food service work I was doing, these are jobs that we're staffing. So at the time when I was doing this work, anyone that's done this work, and there's a lot of people, it's a very disorganized life. It's very offline. There's lots of phone calls, lots of paperwork. It's just it's a confusing experience. And so my company Bluecrew, we're making leveraging a lot of the existing available technology to kind of speed up the process, but more importantly, make hiring decisions with data. Meaning kind of people's work performance. So like if you finish a shift on our platform, you get a rating, and those ratings feed into the algorithm that surface the higher rated workers to the top. So really we're rewarding, good workers who go to work and put their best foot forward, with opportunities. So we were solving this, small problem in a pretty big industry actually, with low complexity work, but this greater problem of being a more data-driven hiring, process, and removing some of the problematic things that we all suffer from, like unconscious bias and things like that. So it's really exciting for me to be a part of this and give people working this type of jobs, doing this type of work, like a better experience, more transparency, accessibility, visibility into like employment that kind of gets them to that next thing. That's where I was 10 years ago. And that's, where I am today, contributing to building a platform that would have helped me while I was at Boston College. So it's not the path I envisioned by any means, but it's been really fulfilling.
Tim, that's amazing. And it's kind of awesome how you tell this story of everything coming back full circle. So
Yeah.
I want to try and get back to that, but for this, I want to focus a little bit for more of our students, just making sure that they understand when you graduate into a tight job market. So could you kind of walk through some of the thoughts that were going through your head? Now, we heard your story. You hustled. You did some service industry jobs for a little bit. You went to Nashville, Tennessee. Could you talk about some of that kind of mindsets you had and what you had to think about, and kind of how you had to throw ego out the door and just take what you could get and work your way up?
Yeah. It was really tough. I'll just be really honest. Like, I thought, having Boston College on my resume would get me the work that I thought I deserved. But in reality, it got me interviews for sure. People wanted to talk about that and were interested. Boston College is highly regarded, all over this country, and you should be proud of that. Anyone that's listening. But it gets you a conversation. It doesn't necessarily get you the job. So I was doing all of that hustling work, but looking back, kind of my experience, I was just looking for a job. I didn't have a particular focus on a type of job. So I was, within finance, I really wanted to work in finance. And I was interviewing for sales and trading, iBanking, corporate finance, anyone that would talk to me. And I don't remember a lot about like the interviews because it was like more than 10 years ago. But I'm sure that I was that candidate that walked in. And maybe I did my research and I knew about the company, but I did not come off as passionate about the industry or the role or the company, because at the end of the day, like my motive was just to find employment. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you've really, I think you can take the opportunities that you have and throw everything at them versus taking as many opportunities as you can find. Throwing a little at them is what I would go back and change. kind of about that experience. I was watching a lot of my classmates land jobs, even during these times, but it was the people that like lived and breathed the markets, like they earned it, they were doing what they needed to do. So, yeah, I don't know, that was a little bit about my experience at the time. It was tough, but it humbled me and got me to the point where I realized no matter what job I was doing, I wanted to be the best, and I could take that opportunity. It doesn't happen right away, but be that best person and move up quickly. And that's once I kind of that light switch flipped on for me is when my career really started to kind of take off.
Awesome, Tim. So just to add insight to that, a lot of people, a lot of alumni have told me, a lot of friends, the BC degree will get you into any door. It will help open up that opportunity. But you have to take that opportunity and show what you can do. So you have the hustle, you have the work ethic. You now just have to figure out where you have to put it. Does that kind of sound like you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I wasn't fully self-aware, and it's tough. It's a very difficult age. You're still trying to kind of figure out who you are and what you're passionate about. But my advice, looking back at my experience, would be ask yourself, like, when you wake up in the morning, what do you think about? What are you really passionate about? I was forcing myself to read the Wall Street Journal every day. But also I think about like what I didn't realize. I was passionate about tech. I was, that this will make me sound old, but while I was at BC, there was the first iPhone that came out. I would see kids on the BC shuttle with an iPhone and just be enamored with it. But I never really put two and two together. Like I could work at that company and be a part of that. I was just so focused on what I thought I should be doing, but I didn't ask myself like internally, what am I passionate about?
So I have a question just about skills as you have gone across your career. And could you talk about, since you've had a finance major and you got out of that mold of I have to just be doing something in finance, could you talk about the skills that you built up, the tools that you put in your toolbox along the way to be successful with Bluecrew today and be able to thrive in this environment?
Having kind of that finance background has been really helpful. But the skills I've developed over time is really being able to, you spend your first few years at any job kind of just getting settled in and understanding what is happening. But over time, I think data is the biggest thing that, being able to collect it, think of new metrics, to create, to influence and measure success and failures is really big. Really hyper specific to like my function in recruiting, sourcing. As a recruiter, I've watched a lot of changes since 2010 in my skill set and industry with respect to sourcing, practitioner of going out and finding candidates that didn't apply to your jobs. Like you go find them. It's more conducive to quality, finding a better fit, higher talent of people that may not necessarily be like actively looking. So you go and convince them. So as a recruiter, to have that sourcing skill, those sourcing skills, to go and attract and bring in talent is very, very valuable. When you look at it even closer for like tech, like to go find software engineers, looking at places, where like centers of excellence, websites like GitHub, Stack Overflow, are places where the top talent, congregates to kind of share their insights on what they're doing. And that's a good place to go find the best talent. And so like being proficient in those areas has really kind of helped me establish, what value I could add to a company. So those are a few things that I would certainly point out that are very achievable, very learnable. If anyone's interested, I'd love to talk about it and kind of share.
Amazing. And I think that kind of filters into one of my last questions before we wrap up here. So as a BC student who's either a sophomore, a freshman, a junior, a senior, this job market's turning. I've spoken with companies that are rescinding offers. They're pushing out offers. One is Bluecrew hiring? Two, what are they looking for in a student, or what skill sets are they looking for their employees to build? And as a recruiting manager, what insight can you give to our young students listening here today?
Yeah. So yeah, Bluecrew is we are still hiring. We're very fortunate to our business is one of the businesses right now that's participating in kind of like the supply chain logistics warehouse, surge of demand, as people are, shipping stuff all over the country, cleaning supplies or whatever. So we're, our platform is staffing a lot of distribution centers and warehouses. But yeah, so I would say like as recruiting manager at Bluecrew or any sort of startup, and this may not be very obvious to someone, in college or graduating, but operations roles, I think are a really good entry point. So for example, like our platform, our software platform does a lot of the heavy lifting of like, finding candidates, setting up the interviews, onboarding them, sending them to work, getting them paid. There's a lot of different steps in the course of like getting someone to work, and software is doing a lot of that. But there's a lot of gaps in the platform where we need humans to kind of, fill it in, keep the business going, but identify processes that make us more efficient, that ultimately will be turned into code and part of our platform. And so I see a lot of like new grads, have opportunities, in operations that it's kind of like it can be really ambiguous roles, kind of do it all, type of thing, but it's a really gritty, roll up your sleeves, like move this business forward, and kind of, get stuff done kind of job. So I would say that's a really good starting point. Sales, you may not be thinking about sales. Sales roles are a really good way to learn a lot about technology, make a lot of money, and make a big impact for a company, for sure. I would say those like sales and operations are good places. And then
Awesome.
of course there's always finance. We have a finance team. Our head of finance went to Wharton. He's got like really impressive background, and that team exists. If you're in CS program, good for you. I wish I had done that. We're always hiring software engineers. There's demand for you everywhere. It's kind of why my job has existed over time, to find you.
So coming from a industry background with GE, operations is key. You got to run the business. Now the business might be making product and shipping it out the door, or it might be technology and making that technology more efficient. So Tim, I'm going to wrap it up with this for our students. What are up to three takeaways for students that they can have from this conversation today about how to go about their job search in potentially a recessionary climate? What can you give? What advice can you give them?
I would say don't panic. Like you're going to be fine. It may not be the path that you imagined or envisioned, but your acumen and your hard work will get you in the right place at some point. It may be right out of college, or it may be in 5 years. Like me, you may not know what you want to do. Specifically, just don't panic, hang in there. I think the second thing I would say is don't just look for a job. Try to be as focused as possible. Companies just want to know that like you want to work there, that you understand what the job is, that you're not going to leave in 6 months. One thing that I see new grads do a lot is like talk about another job while they're interviewing for the job at hand. Like I've seen a candidate, interviewing for an operations job actually, and express, very short-term goals to get into product management. And it's like companies, that's great. It's good to have like a long-term plan and be ambitious, but companies want to know like you're going to stay in a role for like a year or something. So like don't try to like kind of interview for something else by interviewing for one thing, if that makes sense. And I would say, just keep an open mind would be my third point. There's different ways into the company that you want. Leverage the relationships that you have. If a BC grad reaches out to me, I love it. I will always respond. I know what experience you had. I'm still going to, we're still going to run a fair consistent, objective interview process. Just to warn you, but you know, I know what rigorous academics you had to go through to get into that school, and what you had to do to get a degree and all of that. And I have a lot of respect for it, and just like I do like a lot of other institutions. So keep an open mind. There's a lot of different ways into it. Leverage the network you have. BC has an incredible alumni network. You know, here in Chicago, it's very, very, very large. I don't get out with them as much as I'd like, but there's a lot of people that are out there willing to help you. And if they don't respond, they may just be busy. Don't get disheartened.
Tim, really appreciate it. Appreciate your time. Thank you for giving us some of your insights.
Yeah.
Guys,
Absolutely.
reach out to Tim. He's a great guy, and he's doing big things in Chicago and always open for a conversation. And Bluecrew is an amazing company, so look forward to hearing more. And in the future, we'll have other great BC alumni coming back to give back to you guys to help serve you and help you navigate these challenging times. Tim, thanks again.
Yeah, thanks, Drew. Take care, everyone.
Have a good one. Bye.